Hey guys, this is AD from the Explorographer.com, and today we're going to show you how to take a photo from this to this in just a few easy steps in Photoshop and Lightroom. Alright guys, I was watching a hangout the other day and one of my apprentices brought this shot in, Lisa Speakman. Lisa, thank you so much for allowing me to do this to your photo and help you out a little bit and help other folks as well. But she was having a lot of trouble with the sky in this shot. So we often talk about going out and shooting waterfalls, and she didn't have an ideal day. It was kind of a little overcast, but there was a lot of sun. As you can see off to the left, her left shoulder, probably actually in front of her a little bit, there was some sun, it created some shadows, and not ideal conditions for shooting waterfalls. Now, it was good here because the waterfall itself was kind of in the shadow, but the foreground and everything was not. And the best time to shoot waterfalls is actually after a rainstorm where the rocks are all dark, just like they are along where the waterfall is at, or on a day that it's completely overcast and where you have a lot of contrast in the clouds. So Lisa let me take this raw file and mess with it a little bit. And I did. The very first thing that I did is I pulled the highlights back to see what was actually here, and I was really surprised to see that there was quite a bit of detail behind there. But the clouds that are there, they're kind of, you know, it's just a block of stuff in the middle, and it's not really cool looking, I don't think. I don't think it lends to the shot, right? So essentially what I want to do is I want to make sure that this area, we're going to replace the sky here in this area. But I don't want to do anything to the rest of this photo that we don't want. So what I'm going to start out with is actually I'm not going to touch the highlights at all. We're going to boost the shadows up. That's going to bring this up quite a bit. Now I've done some localized adjustment here to balance this. So let me show you that. Those are adjustment brushes and they're here. And I'm going to show you what I did. I actually added, brought out some shadows here, and I also brought out some shadows through the whole overall area. And exposure just a little bit, and I also warmed this up. The waterfall, because it was in a shadow, was kind of blue, and we really don't want blue in the water unless it's down in here where the water was actually blue. But when the water's falling like this, it's actually white, and we want to make sure that that's all white. So I adjusted the white balance there and boosted the shadows a little bit more, and then over here I just boosted the shadows in these really dark areas. So I kind of layer the boosting. Okay, so we got all that done. And we also boosted the shadows overall, and I adjusted, you can see I adjusted some contrast and that kind of stuff. So let's deal with this sky now, right? And the way we're going to do that is we're actually going to deal with the water, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to create a graduated filter. We're actually going to graduate the lower half of this image, so let me make it fairly small here and fairly level. We're only going to do like that much. But what I want to make sure is that we don't have any blown out highlights in the water. So I'm going to go ahead here and just affect just the water by bringing the highlights back. And that's going to make sure that there's no blown out highlights in the lower part of the photo, because we're going to be doing some things to the upper part, and I want to make sure that that's not overly affected. All right, so we've got that protected now. All right, that looks good. We can see all the detail in the water. Cool. All right, now what we're going to do is pull the highlights back on the whole image, which is going to pull back the sky a little bit. Now what I'd like to do here is you can see we have some blown out areas. So I want to make sure that we don't have any blown out areas by actually taking the upper half here and pulling back the highlights until we get rid of just about all of that. Now you notice the bottom half of the photo isn't really getting affected too much. That's because we've made that adjustment. So what we're trying to do is balance here just a little bit. Now once you have all of that, you can also bump up the contrast a little bit more if you want. Or you could actually put a graduated filter going the other way and adjust that. I don't really think it's needed, and you'll see why here in just a second. All right, so I've got that all down, all but that little spot that's within gamut, and that's fine. And that completes the adjustments to the overall file that we want to do before we start the cool stuff. All right, so let's start some cool stuff here. We want to replace this sky. How do we do it? Well, I have a special technique that I use called tonal select, or I think it's select via tonal range, something like that. I'll show you how to do it. But what we need to do is we really need to only take the upper half of this photo in. If we take the whole thing, as we select this white area up here, our waterfall is going to select too, and it's going to be a mess to work with. So what I want to do is create a virtual copy of our image to work on. So now we have our other image that's saved. We have our virtual copy, and I'm going to crop this. And what I want to do is make sure the cropping tool is unlocked, and I really want to have just the upper part of this photo. So I'm going to select right about there. Don't worry about this little bit of waterfall, that's fine. All right, there we have the upper part of this waterfall now to work with. The next step is to take this over into Photoshop. So we're going to select, right-click on here, and we're going to select Edit In, and then Photoshop. Okay, here's our layer in Photoshop, and now I'm going to show you how to select just the sky here and replace it. So the first thing that I want to do is make a copy of my background. We always make these copies because we're going to either do something or we want to protect the background in case we screw up and we can go back. That's always important, right? Okay, now we got our background copy. We're going to come up here to the Select menu and then down to Color Range. That's going to bring up this little window here. And it shows you already how I've selected everything, so you won't be seeing this exactly the same way. So I'm going to start this over. Very first thing you want to do is be selected on the eyedropper tool, just the plain one here, not the one with the plus or the minus, just the plain eyedropper, and click anywhere on the sky. Okay, you can see that created kind of a fairly good selection here. Now normally, you're going to have to play with the range and the fuzziness. Normally, I would tell you to make sure both of these were turned way down when you first select. This photo has basically the sky pretty well is different from everything else that we're working with. So I'm going to show you how to do that first. And then the next thing I would do is click on the eyedropper with the plus, and then I would start selecting, holding the mouse button down and selecting all of these areas. I'm just dragging the mouse around, and you can see in that little window that it's selecting all these areas. Now, don't run over the trees, whatever you do. That'll really mess up. So I want to make sure that I'm just clicking outside of these trees in all of these areas. Don't click outside the photo either, because it will select this gray as well. So make sure you stay within the photo. If you need to get closer, you can hit Command or Control plus, and that'll allow you to zoom in so that you can really tighten up and add. Here you can see there's an area between the trees, right? So we'll get all of that. Looks pretty good. There's an area over here by this larger tree. Just cursor over there. Make sure that we got that between the trees. Along here. Looks pretty good. That's not bad for just using the eyedropper to do it, right? Okay. Now, you're not going to get it perfect, but you can get it close. And that's what our fuzziness and range sliders are for. I generally turn the fuzziness up pretty good because I want it to blend into the trees fairly well, and I'll turn the range up. Now, as I turn the range up, you can see that these waterfalls start to appear. That's okay. Don't worry about that. All right, now once we see that a lot of the mask is starting to show up nicely here, we can go ahead and hit OK, and it will create the mask for us. Okay, there we have it with all of our ants marching all over the place. Now this area down here, you can get rid of that. It's fairly easy. If you select your quick selection mask tool here, and then you put it up on minus, it will actually allow you to draw over these areas and erase them. Okay, so we don't have those two waterfalls in there. That's an easy fix. You don't really need to worry about that, but you can if you want to. Okay, the next step, we need to make a quick mask. So while we still have everything selected here on our background copy and our mask is still going, go ahead and hit the quick mask icon down here, and that will create our mask. All right. The next step is to unlock our mask from our foreground image. So we're going to click on the little link in there in between, and then finally click on the layer itself. Next step is to Command or Control A to select the entire layer, and then hit the delete key, which will delete the layer. So what we're doing is basically deleting that image on top of our background, and this will allow us to paste in a new image that will appear only where the mask is painted white. So if you look on here, you can see the white mask is right there, and that's the only place that we really want that to appear. All right, so I'm gonna hit Command or Control D to unselect everything because we don't want that. And we're gonna come over here to a sky that I captured. Anytime I'm out and there's a cool sky, I usually try to capture just the sky because I never know when I'm gonna need it for an image like this. So I've gone ahead and selected just the sky here, and I'm gonna hit Command or Control C to copy that. And then back over to my waterfall layer, I'm going to hit Command or Control V to paste it. And instantaneously you can see that our sky now appears. Now the important thing about replacing skies is making sure that it's believable, and that's the difficult part. And so in order to do that, a few things have to come into play. One is that you usually want to make sure that the horizon of whatever sky file that you're using matches the horizon of your photo. Now we know that the horizon is way down here somewhere in the waterfall, and we know it's kind of way down there in the sky as well. So I'm going to just move the sky and select the move tool, and I'm going to move the sky up here. And already you can see it becomes a little bit more believable as I move it. Now I kind of like that little thin strip of blue going through there, so I'm going to go ahead and use that and position it right there. I kind of like that position all the way around. That's good. All right, so you can see here that this does not look good. No one would believe that our sky just appeared like that unless we had glowing trees. So we need to fix that. So how do we fix that without a lot of pixel work, which would take forever? Well, there's a really easy way to fix it in a super quick way, and I'll show you how to do that. It's just simply to take your background layer, make a new layer out of it, and then drag it above your sky layer so that we have background, we have our new sky, and then we have background. Now you can see we lost our sky, right? But really all we want to do is, because our sky was so light like this, all we want to do is make our trees more prominent and allow our sky to appear. So all we do is change this layer into a darken layer, and boom, we end up with our same problem again. Now this is how you fix that though. It's very easy. Select your sky layer, double click on the mask of the sky layer so it brings up the properties menu. That'll appear right here. Now adjust the feather in the properties until you see that glowy stuff magically disappear. And there you go. Simple as that. Suddenly we have a sky that fits right in. Everything looks real, like we did it for real. And that's all there is to it. Pretty simple. Now the final step here, you can flatten this layer if you want to. I don't like to do that in case I don't like it once I get it into the actual photo. So I leave it like it is, and I'm going to save it like it is. So it'll save it as layers. So I'm just going to click the close button, and then it asks me if I want to save it. I'm going to say yeah. All right, we're going to go back over to Lightroom now. We're going to see that our new sky layer appears nicely here. All right, so the final piece to this is to match this up with our original photo. So all we're going to do is hit Command or Control and select our photo as well, and then right click here on the photo itself, and then come down to Edit In, and then you guys can't see this because it's off the bottom of the screen, but there's an entry at the very bottom called Open as Layers in Photoshop, and I'm going to do that. All right, there we go. So it's opened in Photoshop, and you can see that it doesn't look all that great because our sky's in the wrong position. So select that layer and just drag it on up there, and boom, it clicks right into place, and suddenly we have a completely replaced sky. We didn't touch any of this. Now sometimes when we do that fuzziness thing where we fuzzy that out, you can see here that we have lines in our edit, and we don't want those. So what we need to do is, like, I don't see them anywhere else in here. It looks like it did a pretty good job. But if you want to really make sure that it all goes together right, turn your background layer off. All right, grab your erase tool. And what you're going to do is go ahead and erase all of this background through here, but follow the contours of whatever your image is quite closely so that you don't enter into the sky, but you keep that transition really close to the cliff edge or whatever your image between the sky and that edge. Okay, so I just want to make sure that I'm not going into the clouds, because if I do, I'm going to get halos, and I don't want that. So here I'm just going to basically, I like the trees a little cloudy, so I'm going to leave them the way they are. All right, and then I'm going to zoom in close here because I got to be careful because this will actually go into the clouds and I'll get that halo. Shrink my brush size down and just go ahead and fuzzy that in nice and light. Okay, see how I'm following the tree line and the cliff line. There we go. All right. Once we have all that done, go ahead and switch the background back on, and you can see now there are no lines there. We have the sky moved up. I moved the sky up a little bit, so let's move that back down. There we go. All right. Cool. That's it. That's all there is to it. You can go ahead and flatten this now. Layer, flatten image, and you're all done. So that's how to replace the sky using Lightroom and Photoshop only. It's a little bit of a process, but it's well worth it, and it makes a believable replaced sky in your photo to kind of finish this photo off. Hope you liked this video, and if you did, please click the like button on my YouTube page and subscribe to my channel because that's always important. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks.